Moonshine Jesus, baby, alright. Moonshine Jesus, a surprising delight. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Hello and welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We're glad that you can join us today. We are, as always, brought to you by the wonderful organization ProgressiveChristianity.org. Great place to find all your progressive Christianity resources. I hope you'll check them out on their website and social media, and that you'll follow us on social media and you'll subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Today, we will be talking about TMNT, Mutant Mayhem, and we will spoil it for you, so that's something that you ought to know. I am joined, as always, by the one, the only, Mark Sandlin. How you doing today, Mark?
I am doing great, man. I really am. I'm having a good time today. We'll get into the show, but the one thing that if anyone says this was not a fun movie, I don't understand them.
They're lying. That's not true.
So it'll be fun to talk about.
Movie's amazing.
Just because it's got stuff that we can talk about, but it's fun. It's fun from
It is fun. It is fun. You know what else is fun, Mark? Drinking. I might know. Well, we talk about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
Did you bring a drink?
I did. I went ahead and made a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ooze. You can tell it looks like ooze.
Okay.
It is coconut rum, melon liqueur, and pineapple. And you can see, since it sounded like a tiki drink, I put it in my glass tiki cup with a little bit of accoutrement to enjoy. It also kind of has that 80s vibe with the colors going on there.
I like it.
I went that direction. What did you decide to go with?
Okay, for the first time, I made the same drink, but I made it differently.
Okay.
This has never happened. Somebody needs to document this. But but look, yes, I made the same drink, but I made it in a different way. I called it a turtle cocktail, so say melon liqueur, coconut rum, and pineapple juice. But I've got mine. It's a shot, and you can kind of see it. It's green, but it's in this glass that kind of looks like a turtle shell. My brother-in-law, he blows glass. He made this for me, and on the bottom, it's got all the turtle colors.
All the colors for the turtles.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a turtle shell. This is my Ninja Turtle shot.
That's very cool, man.
Cheers to you, Mark.
Cheers to you. Here's to a great show.
Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Hello and welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. You are joining us for our Geek Out segment, where Caleb and I will commence to geek out about the show we're talking about. We promise we'll keep it kind of focused and kind of short so we can get onto the theopolitico in our next segment. But for those of you who somehow may not be initiated into all things that are Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, let me give you the setup for this movie. It is your, typical coming-of-age story that happens to feature pizza-obsessed teenage turtles that have mutated into humanoid forms and also happen to have ninja skills. Like I said, typical movie-going stuff.
It makes perfect sense if you think about it.
It does, and it's so normal. I'm getting old. This is an old story. Pete, why do they have to keep telling this story? And this particular one, after years of being sheltered from the human world, the turtles set out to, win the hearts and minds of New Yorkers and be accepted as normal teenagers. And their new friend, April O'Neil, helps them take on a mysterious crime syndicate, but they soon get in over their heads when an army of other mutants are unleashed upon them. So, Caleb, I know that you are a lifelong Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle
lifelong. Yes.
All right. So I'm actually really interested. I don't want to hear your analysis. I don't want to hear your breakdown. The first thing I want to hear is when you're sitting in the theater, the movie starts. What's your emotional experience? And then what was your emotional experience throughout that movie?
Okay, so this was double for me for two reasons here. Okay, because one, Ninja Turtles movie is the first movie I really remember going to see in the movie theater. Yeah, I don't think it's the first movie I saw, but it's the first one I remember seeing, the 1990 live action Ninja Turtle movie. Okay, so I had that emotional thing, and so I've been visiting my parents in Missouri, and so I went with my parents to go see the Ninja Turtle movie. So I had a great emotional experience of this movie because I'm like, this is like my childhood, you know. And I spent so many hours watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because I was born, Mark, just like in the midst of the Turtle Mania, right? So the comic came out in 1984. I was born in 1985. The cartoon came out in 1987. And so all of my life, I remember Ninja Turtles being a part of it. I've been finding my Ninja Turtle toys while I've been visiting with my parents.
That's fantastic.
I love Ninja Turtles. Sitting here watching this movie, it was great because it was all the best stuff about the Ninja Turtles, including the weirdness. The thing that I loved about watching this movie as an adult was like they really leaned into how weird the Ninja Turtles lore is, and they kind of they really accepted it as kind of a weird story. Like the quote I just said a few minutes ago, it makes perfect sense if you think about it, right? The meta commentary that they gave as they were trying to explain how weird this and little sense it actually made.
They embraced the weirdness and picked on themselves throughout the movie. It was a lot of fun. I had, I didn't grow up with the Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was already in high school when that started happening. My kids did grow up with it, and they were both very much obsessed with it. So there is this childhood joy of watching my own kids enjoying it and watching it with them. My kids and I watched everything together all the time. It was just what we did as a family. And I like I said, I didn't see it as a kid, but there was this nostalgic childhood joy that I couldn't help but feel as I was watching it, just as I remembered my kids watching it and watching what they were doing on the screen. I mean, it was pretty incredible what they were managed to pull off, which takes me to the next thing I'm really curious to hear about was what was your take on the animation style or sort of styles that they went with, and what did you think about the particular choice? Because it was something we'd not really seen before, at least in total, not seen before.
I loved it, so I think and I think that that added to the nostalgia of it all in some ways because I mean we've not had a shortage of Ninja Turtle creation, right? I mean we've had animation, we've had live action.
Yeah, this is the 7th movie. That's just movie, not comics, not books, not television.
Right, yeah, because there have been a number of animated series on television as well. So I mean, you can watch Ninja Turtles pretty much whenever you want. But I think the style made it made it feel a little bit more original to the kind of the comic book, the origins of the story. I think that added to the nostalgia. So the only place that I've really seen anything like this kind of attempted is in the Into the Spider-Verse kind of films, where we see the kind of the comic book animated styles. But I thought it was great. What was your reaction to it?
I thought it was absolutely amazing because I'm with you. They very much started off with the animation style that Spider-Verse uses. It's pretty evident. But one of the things I love about the movie is how seriously they took, which wasn't always the case with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle properties, how seriously they took that these are teenagers. And so the animation style for me, they took the nice, clean, very interesting, new, almost 3D-ish graphics, highly colorized, what Spider-Verse did. But then they dirtied it up really well. Like they left, like instead of filling in background stuff, they just do scribbles. The faces were typically not symmetrical at all. They were asymmetrical, almost like a kid in his first art class was drawing the face, kind of thing. And they were non-apologetic about it. Like they were frequently, the main character who's speaking would have just random scribble on the side of their face. It felt very organic and like middle school, or when I was there, junior high, kind of like what you would see in the corners of someone's notebook as the lecture gets boring and they just start scribbling stuff. Yeah. So I loved how they did that. It was fun. It was engaging.
Yeah.
And it felt right for who they were telling the story about.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I love the fact that this really did also feel like the first Ninja Turtle adaptation we got where they really did feel like teenagers in terms of personality and stuff. And I don't think that really hit me until I was actually watching this movie. I'm like, wait, they're like real teenagers. They're voiced by like real teenagers.
The only time it's ever been voiced by teenagers.
And so it never really felt like they were Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? They were just Mutant Ninja Turtles, and so that made it like a lot of fun too. And as you were saying earlier, a real coming of age story. You really got to feel what they might feel like going through this.
Yeah, I forget what it was before I ever watched the movie. You know how it works in social media. Sometimes something pops up and you're curious and you realize I don't want to know this. I don't want to know this.
Right? Yes.
One of the things that I read was from the director, who said that not only did he intentionally hire teenagers to play the main roles because he wanted to give it that energy and that realism, but none of them recorded their parts separately. They were all in the studio at the same time. Yeah. And he never turned the mics off. Like they would read their lines and he would leave the mics on. So when they did typical teenager cutting up and talking over top of each other and stuff, that the good parts, some of that he would mark and save and put into the movie. So some of the times when we see a big screenshot where it's the four of them just goofing off, talking about some YouTube video and doing crazy goof stuff, and you can barely understand because they're all talking at the same time, but they're laughing and having a great time. It's just what really happened in the room with the teenagers recording it.
That's fantastic.
Truth. Oh, you can feel it. You could feel it when you were listening,
You can feel it. And that's one of the fun things about, like, even if you go hang out with teenagers, and which is, something occasionally we have to do as clergy, right? To take teenagers on trips. And it's kind of a way of being like, man, they're having such fun. I remember what it was like to be like that, to not have a care in the world, to really be having fun and enjoying this. Yeah.
My first church job was doing ministry with middle schoolers. And I loved it. People thought I was nuts. And people, everybody, I can't believe you want to work with middle school.
You want to work with them? Yeah.
There is an energy and a happiness and this new sense of pure curiosity, which goes along with that age. And that's exactly what we saw in this movie. I mean, they were so curious about the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At first, they're even not that interested in being heroes. They're more interested in the human experience. They go out and they're talking about wanting to see concerts, and they do show up to an outdoor movie, which is something I'm curious about. Why do you think the outdoor movie they watched was Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Because he gets to go and explore the world, right? He's supposed to be in this very strict confines, and in that case, high school and stuff.
Which they're curiously really wanting to go to.
They really want to go to high school. I can't wait to go to high school. But he gets to go out and he gets to do whatever he wants. And the scene that they're watching at the end is where he hijacks the parade, right? And I mean, just the best. Hey, I bet every day is like this in high school. You can go hijack parades and do whatever you want. Right. And so it's the freedom. Ferris Bueller is all about freedom and being who you want to be and doing what you want to do. Plus, it's quintessential 80s, just like Ninja Turtles.
So 80s.
So I love that. Yeah. And I love that it was not a cartoon.
And I think part of it also, that was so cool watching the real movie within a cartoon. And they did it a couple of other times with some videos where they were learning to be ninjas. I love that they used Ferris Bueller. Ferris Bueller was probably my favorite movie second favorite movie growing up in high school. Ferris Bueller I connected with that. I loved it. I also think part of the reason they used it, and this plays into some of the good things they were doing with this movie, was this is a guy that was different, unusual, but loved for being different and unusual. He was accepted everywhere he went. So I felt like that was just such a really smart choice for these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles who had the experience. We see a flashback where their dad goes and takes them, into the world, and they're not accepted even in the middle of Times Square where everyone's in weird costumes, and they're in they look like they're in weird costumes, but nobody accepts them, and it's crazy. I love that setup of early on having to watch Ferris Bueller for the setup of being accepted for being different, and how cool and how they were desiring that. I thought was really, really amazing. So, like I said, you're a big fan. You kind of know the canon over a long period of time, much more than I do. I'm curious about what you thought about the places where they changed some of the main canon. In particular, they seem to rewrite the canon and say only animals can be mutants. Like in the original comic books and earlier movies, it was frequently humans that mutated towards animal people forms. What did you think about that change? And I'll probably have a follow-up based on what you say.
So for instance, Splinter was originally Hamato Yoshi, right? Who has come, and he's come into contact with a rat, and so their forms kind of mutate together. And the turtles become human beings because the most recent being they've been in contact with is Hamato Yoshi whenever he finds them as a human being in the sewers. And so same with the Fly, right? In the comics, Baxter Stockman becomes the Fly, right? The Superfly,
which was inspired by Jeff Goldblum's
the Fly, which right? Because what's creepier than that? Anyway, if you had asked me this going into the movie, if you had told me this and I had known, I probably would have had some nerd rage about it. But it didn't. But I didn't know that, and it didn't bother me. I kind of like I thought it worked fine in the show, especially since they poked fun at it. I think one thing that made less sense is that, so they explain it, right, in the comics and the early cartoons that it's the mutagen, the ooze, right? It combines the two.
We like to call it the ooze.
The ooze. I like that. The ooze,
not the sludge. Ooze. We like to call it the
sludge. The ooze. A great moment. Fun line. But it combines the two cells, and it doesn't like what makes them become turtle people. They poke fun at it, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't think whenever we lose that. But
it really doesn't.
It wasn't a huge deal. Tell me, okay. So based on how I
completely agree. I don't even have a follow-up. I completely agree. I mean, I felt like Bebop and Rocksteady and several of the bad guys that we get introduced to in the original stuff, if I remember right, were actually humans who got exposed to ooze and became animals, rather than animals got exposed to ooze and became hybrids, animal people kind of thing. So I thought it was really a smart move, because I think it makes all the characters that are mutants much more intriguing. That it's not a human that has changed form, because then we got all these humans that something could happen to. I just think it's much more interesting to leave it in the animal world, and sets up the trying to navigate humanity, which is a lot of what this is about.
Ooh, I like that.
A lot better than it mutating the other way. Okay, it is very clear that we could geek out about this for another 20 minutes. But as you remember, I started this segment telling people, don't worry, we won't stay on this too long. And we've already stayed on it too long. So after we have worn out our geeked out welcome, let us take a quick little drop and come back on the other side for our Theo Politico segment.
Moonshine,
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We are entering our Theopolitico segment, where we will talk about theology and politics of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Mutant Mayhem. We have shown you that we are indeed geeks, and we have watched a lot of Ninja Turtles, and we've also studied some theology and politics, and so I've got to get your
a
little bit, right? I don't know. Have I spent more time studying theology or watching Ninja Turtles?
I know which one it is for me, and since I am installed as a minister in the church, I don't want to talk about it.
That's a great answer.
It might go in the opposite direction of what the average person would think it does.
It's always Bible. No, I've read it's always the Bible. No, okay. So I've got some questions for you, Mark. And one of the lines that really jumped out at me is one of the turtles is referencing the way that Splinter has taught them about humans. And he says, I know that it's objectively prejudiced, their reaction to thinking all humans are bad, but that's what Father taught us. So, Mark, I'm curious to get your perspective on this. How hard is it to unlearn what we have been taught?
It is ridiculously hard, particularly if the person teaching us is someone that we revere and have respect for, and more importantly, has done something that shows how deeply they care for and protect us. Because it starts to feel like a betrayal if they weren't particularly wonderful people, but we thought, wow, let's look what they're doing in the world, I'll listen to them. It's a little easier. It is really difficult to break out of those ways of seeing the world when a person you cared about, a person who's cared for you, talks to you about it. And honestly, it's too few people manage to navigate that space. It's really difficult. Matter of fact, frequently it never breaks out because you get confined to the world that you're in, and you don't get exposed to things that might allow you to begin to question or begin to even explore other approaches to it. But I think that honestly, for me, particularly in a progressive Christian setting, that's one of the main things that we progressive Christians do well and need to continue working on, is not telling people what to believe as much as providing a space that is safe to ask those questions about the things they have learned about others or about the world. Place where it's safe to ask questions, a place where you know that you're going to get honest and really well thought out and scholastic responses of here's the information, and you can ask all the questions you want. You won't be judged. If anything, we're just going to try to be here with you and continue to provide responses based on your questions. I mean, Yes. Oh, yes, I love it. Yes, that's what we're about.
That's when we're at our best, right?
Wait.
I'm not
You're
saying we're always
at
our
best.
Well, you and I are, but I'm telling you.
Well, of course. We mess up a lot in progressive circles too. But this is what we call like inherited theology, right? The theology that we inherit from folks who teach us about that. I agree. Is one of the things that I spend the most time doing in my personal ministry as people come to the church. But one of the most heartbreaking things is whenever you are hearing someone describe something that has been harmful to them and that they've thought that they had to believe. Say, for example, that they're gay and they've been taught that that's a sin, right? And so they, even as they deconstruct that, and they say, you know what? This is based on crap theology. This is terrible theology. I've learned I've deconstructed this. That you're right. Sometimes there's that seed of that stays within that person, even after they've deconstructed all of that.
Absolutely.
That says, am I really worthy? Is everything that I've done actually against God, even though intellectually I know, but it's what I was taught, and it's hard to ever get that seed completely out.
In a lot of ways, it does feel like betrayal. It feels like you're betraying a person who really mattered to you and you respected and you were trying to honor.
And that's one of the things we have to be even better at in helping people navigate that weird little space where intellectually they completely get that what they were taught is not real, is not right. But the emotional part where we have to help folks figure out, how do I not feel like I'm betraying that person? How do I still feel connected and like they matter to me and are important, but I can think differently than them, but still love and care for them.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I think that's
me in some way.
And that's important. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's important for progressive churches to not be, a little wishy-washy about how they're going to be inclusive. Like, if you're going to be church, if you're going to go through the whole thing of being church, meeting on Sundays or whatever, like, be church and proclaim something that doesn't make people feel horrible about themselves the rest of their lives. It doesn't matter if there are 20 people in that sanctuary, or 5, be the church, be the church. So there are a lot of great lines in this, Mark. One of the other ones that I loved was whenever we hear that humans are complicated creatures. They're good, like April, and bad, like that lady who tried to kill us. Yeah, that's right. That's so humans are complicated creatures. Is that true? What do you think about that, Mark? What's your take on that?
Oh gosh, that's a giant question. People have wrote.
I know.
Books. Volumes of books about it.
Well, but I don't want to hear what millions of authors think. Honestly, just Mark Scanlon, that's what we need.
Of course. Honestly, no.
Yeah.
People are not as complicated as we try to make them out to be. People aren't as complicated as the world that they reside in pushes them to believe that they are. People want to be loved and included. You do those things, which includes things like equality and justice, love and inclusion, all of that. That is the basic human need. Yes, we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs that we all have to have, but if we all love and include each other, those basic needs are met. Our core need is to be loved, genuinely loved, and it needs to be like a real, not a conditional love, genuinely loved for who you are and included because you're loved. It's really not much more complicated than that, are we?
Wait. So you're saying that, like, if we love each other unconditionally, and like if people experience love and they experience acceptance, that they're more likely to act that way towards other people?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to say that was mine, but I read something from a guy who once said, "Love your neighbor as yourself." I don't remember his name, but
that sounds like your theology degree and studies coming through. We're talking about Ninja Turtles here, man.
Okay, you're right. I just say I might have stolen that from some dude that
you might have stolen it from
a guy that might have had a couple of books written about it. But I'm just saying that we really are that uncomplicated. It certainly feels great to think we're all complicated. Yeah. It's the world that makes us feel like we're complicated because the world doesn't love and include everyone. Am I oversimplifying this?
I love the way that you've answered that, but I also love the fact that you point to how simple the gospel actually is. Because not only do we make human beings ourselves seem much more complicated, but we make like religion and the Bible, we make that super complicated.
Yeah.
And it's really not that complicated. When you boil it down, it's love your neighbors as yourself. And if you want to know God, you got to love people. That's what it's about. Love. If you wonder what you should do, maybe
it's one of my favorite things is, and I can't do it off the top of my head right now, but when Jesus is asked that, he says, the greatest commandment is love God and love your neighbor as yourself. The "and" there is actually a word that means and basically the same thing. So loving your neighbor is loving God.
Equal.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And it also should tell us something about how we conceive God. If loving neighbor is loving God,
what?
question.
Word.
Just think about that, right?
Mark. Right, because that's what people are like. Well, how do you believe in God? What this old guy in the sky who's omnipotent and omnipresent and omniscient and all that. Like maybe don't believe in that God. And like. Maybe that's not what God is. That's just what people have told you that God is. Hey, look, I'd love to dig into that more, but I've got another question I have to ask you before we run out of time.
Okay,
and
all right.
It has to do with the media, and this so the media becomes an important part, especially at the end of the film. I think we should say it's great that April she's a teenage reporter too, and she's a person of color, which I think is a good representation. But we see during the final fight scene, the media portraying false information about the Ninja Turtles, and that influences how people respond to them, right? They're against them. And April gets on, and all she says is, actually, that's not accurate. I've got new information. And actually, the Turtles are trying to defeat Superfly. Help the Turtles. And all of a sudden, when people have accurate information, they make a different decision. Is that making any commentary about the state of media these days?
No, I mean, in the United States, we have laws that make sure people don't lie about the news, right?
Oh, thank God! I was really worried that there was this one station that sounds like the name of an animal.
I remember very distinctly growing up that we have. Oh, wait a minute. There was a president who got rid of that. Never mind. We used to have laws about that. Turns out, I missed that one. Yeah. No, we definitely have news channels that are lying their asses off to influence people, to make them ugly, mean people, let's not say hate. We definitely have news stations that are actively trying to other people, trying to create divisions because capitalism, because it sells, because more people will tune in, give them something that allows them to feel like they're more important or better than, or that there's this evil that they need to be focused on. And they will keep coming back to hear that and to provide the energy and the information they need to be focused on that. So, no, unfortunately.
Who gives a shit if it tears the country apart as they're doing it,
or kills people,
or literally kills people.
It is literally killing people every day. I'm glad that we say that we're not a PG show, because it's bullshit. The bullshit that they put out there is killing people, and the fact that our government will not do a damn thing about it, they keep allowing it to happen while people die over lies.
Yeah,
that is a real problem, man. I mean,
yes. And people are being influenced and believe things. And so I think maybe our shout out to everyone listening is, please don't believe everything you see or hear just because you've seen or heard it.
Unless it's on this show.
Unless it's on this show. Yes. Oh, I'm glad you caught that, Mark, because you can always trust us. Yeah, just blindly accept anything we say.
Absolutely.
And like anything we say about God, don't bother to no, please think for yourself. Please think for yourself. Okay, 100%. I have other things I want to talk about, but we have another segment that we've got to get to, because we need to try to make each other look stupid. That's what we do in the next segment, and if we don't do that, I know we're gonna really regret it. So let's end this segment. Let's come back after the drop, and let's try to make each other look stupid.
Hello and welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. You're joining us for our Make Me Look Stupid segment, where Caleb and I do our very best to ask a question that will make the other co-host bumble and stumble and look completely stupid. So, Caleb, for 2 shows in a row, you've not managed to steal any questions.
I'm really off my game.
I'm a little disappointed in you. I was so certain. Like last show, I had 5 questions just to be ready. I was so disappointed in you. I only did 2 this time, and you didn't steal either one of them. So
next time you might come with 1, and then I'm going to take it.
I will not do that. There's no way I'm doing that. Nope. I will never do that. I won't trust it that much. But I'm going to be the benevolent host of this segment and give you one last opportunity to steal one of my questions.
Okay. So one of the things that I kind of loved was the references to other pop culture stuff in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. That was a lot of fun. And so they reference in this movie Hulk and Megamind. So I'm curious, Mark, in the past, we have seen team-ups between the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and, say, Batman, for instance. What universe are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in? Hulk is obviously he's Marvel and Batman's DC. Yeah. What universe are they in?
Yeah, I think in this movie, not in all the other iterations of it, they are in their own universe, which is ours. They refer to them as characters, as as they definitely refer to these other folks as characters, things they've watched on YouTube. I need to say, I think just based on how many references they made to YouTube and Netflix type things, they have remarkably good Wi-Fi for sewers. They really.
They even ask about the Wi-Fi situation in this.
Oh, that's right. You wrote it down as one of her questions. Yeah. They have remarkably good Wi-Fi for that. But that's my take: is that they live in our universe. At least that's what we were supposed to believe, and that they're making these pop culture references just like you and I do throughout these shows. What do you think?
I think that they have watched Hulk, for instance, on their streaming services. Mm-hmm. I'm holding out.
So you believe they have Disney Plus? Is what you're saying?
I think they have Disney Plus. I think they have Disney Plus and Megamind. That's like DreamWorks, isn't it?
I think it is.
So what would that Netflix? Yeah,
probably.
Netflix. They probably got all the streaming services because they're in the sewer. When you get to watch a cockroach surfing a turd, is that?
That was fantastic. There was so many great lines.
Yeah, so many great. I'm gonna hold out hope that they're in.
Which made me remember. Hold on. Maybe remember because the person who said that we have not brought up Puke Girl.
Puke Girl. Well,
she's the one that said, "Oh, a cockroach riding a turd." Like, she's the one that said it, but we didn't bring up. That's one of the most brilliant scenes in the movie. Is when we see her, and then she does a little bit. Oh, that was so great.
And so it's good.
And it was the color of ooze. Her vomit was the color of ooze.
And it's great whenever she gets on actual TV. That you think she's gonna stomach it, get it down, and then sorry about that. That's old me. I'm over that now. Okay, so I'm holding out hope. Brilliant. I think they're gonna be in the same universe as DC. I want to see. I want to see some epic crossovers in the future.
All right. Well, we'll see. I know that there was, if I remember right, they cross over more with DC. I think the Hulk may have been one of the first times they mentioned Marvel. And if I remember right, Splinter defeated Batman in a crossover animation. So that could be interesting. Which brings me to my question.
Which I did not steal.
That you did not steal. Will Splinter be the biggest bad in the next movie?
Ooh.
Because did you see the mid-scene credit? Did you see the mid-scene credit?
I did. Yeah. Wait. You mean Shredder?
Shredder, I meant, not Splinter. Obviously not Splinter. Splinter's going to die. Let's be serious. Shredder. So Shredder be the big bad in the next movie.
He's going to be a tool, which I think is interesting. Well, I mean, I guess Shredder's always operated as a tool in the cartoons.
I mean, there was a time there where he was kind of the main bad guy, right? Was he working for anybody?
He was working for Krang from Dimension X, and so I think we are going to see Krang in the next one, and so
we've seen Krang.
Oh, okay, yeah, you okay? So you think
I think that Cynthia Utrum.
We're gonna get her brain
because Krang, his race was called an Utrum.
Oh,
and her name's Cynthia Utrum. And then, if you remember that weird kind of white, oversized body that he was in, and he had Krang was in that frame was a square gold frame around him. Cynthia Utrum wears square gold glasses.
Oh, okay,
I think that they're hinting that that's Utrum's new body. I could be wrong. I think there's a hint that that's Utrum's new body. And then,
I can't wait to see if that's right. But I agree with you. I think it's going to be Krang.
It has to be
using Shredder as a tool.
Absolutely. All right. Listen, we have had a lot of fun. We've gone on and on, a little more than maybe some people felt like this movie deserved, but we loved it and we enjoyed it. So awesome. It doesn't matter. I will say this. I loved it. I enjoyed it. It was a crazy, ridiculous, simple storyline. I hope they improve on that the next time. But other than that, no, that's also, I'm going to say one more thing.
Okay.
As I'm trying to wrap up.
Why not, Mark?
Look,
why not?
They violated their own rules of the universe. Just as, I'm sorry, I can't help this. These things
geek out.
Me.
Come on.
These things
yes,
get to me.
Yes.
Just as they were saving the world and spilling the ooze back into the water, they say, oh, well, what will happen if the ooze gets in the water where all those sea animals live and they get exposed? What will happen? And implying that, well, clearly we're going to have a bunch of sea animal mutants.
Right.
Why the hell was one leg made of horses? You're breaking your own damn rules. Like you said that it'll be a bunch of sea animals.
Well, he went, he liked that big glob, the Superfly, was still dripping ooze and walked through the zoo and got, of course, why are there?
They just forgot to leave that part in. Is that what you're saying?
No, they didn't. He did. He went through it. No, he did. He landed in the zoo.
After he was still dripping from zoo.
Yeah, he was still. But why were there horses in zoos? So
yeah. No.
That's because zoos are in parks. That's where mounted police officers are, Mark. Those are all the mounted police officers.
All right, fair enough.
Okay.
All right, listen, we can keep going on and being goofy and silly about this. It was a lot of fun. Bottom line, it's a great, fun movie. Don't expect it to be high for movie making, but expect it to be fun, over the top enjoyment movie making. But we do have to decide what we should talk about next week. Coming up, we got several very good things. We got Blue Beetle. We got Ashoka. We've got some good stuff. What can we take care of next week before we get to those?
Okay, Mark, I've been thinking about this, and I want to know what you think. So we're both Star Trek fans, and this has been an absolutely incredible season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And we're going to get the last episode drop this Thursday. And so we can talk about the whole season if we talk about it next week. What do you think?
I am so into that. I am completely into that. There have been very good seasons of new Star Trek, but this may be my favorite reboot or prequel, sequel so far.
Mark, this may be my favorite Star Trek ever. This season of Strange New Worlds. I'm going to say it. I'm going to go ahead and go down and say this is my favorite Star Trek. This is the best Trek we've ever had.
That is big,
I love it. I know it's big. I'm going to go ahead.
All right.
And I'm going to assume that this last episode is going to fulfill that.
All right, you people heard it here. This is the best ever Star Trek. And so if you haven't been watching it, you need to go watch it and enjoy it and come back and listen to the Moonshine Jesus show. And if you don't like it, blame Caleb. Just blame. I'm not saying it. It's Caleb, so it's all on his shoulders. No, actually, I actually very much love it too. So that'll be our show next week. We are so glad and so thankful that you've all tuned into this show. You are the folks that make it reasonable and possible for us to show up and let our geek flags fly and to play around with some theology and politics and kind of bring that into pop culture. We're so thankful for you and invite you back the next time on the Moonshine Jesus Show. Moonshine Jesus.